We'll be able to pick up later. Welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 126. And tonight we're going to prepare for Yom Kippur, which is coming tomorrow night. Less than 24 hours. It's time to go swing that rooster over your head.
Excuse me, we don't swing. We gently.
I knew I'd get a response from that one.
We gently cradle it in our hands and circle it around our heads.
Right. This is called kaparis.
Yeah.
Kaparis. So we have live roosters and live chickens, and at our shul in the sukkah. They keep it in the sukkah. And some people go tonight. So many people go tomorrow morning. And so we got to get our class going here because we got lots to do tomorrow. You got to get your 3 meals in. You got to get your go to the mikveh 3 times. You got to. It's a lot of stuff. So it's a very busy day. And then, of course, we have a very busy day, Yom Kippur, and it's a very special time. And so I wanted to tell a story just to sort of lighten things up a little. And also, I think the story captures a lot about what the specialness of this time is and how much we can change, how much we can fix, how much we can transform our lives in 26 hours in a completely new way. And it's beyond all of our mental calculations of how we thought it could go. And so I want to, so I'll start with the story, and then I'll give a little explanation about it. So this is a cute story. Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson told it. I have told it here. I think I've told it here before, but I never really saw this angle on it before. So I thought I would tell it again, and because it's just such a powerful story anyway. So, of course, Rabbi Y.Y. has the advantage. He has musical accompaniment in the background. So you have to sort of imagine that there's a keyboard there playing in the background, doing the Kol Nidre and all the other kinds of songs behind me, but I don't have that. I thought that was good. Got us into the mood. You have to set the mood.
Okay.
And then it helps me get into the mood. Okay. And this is a story happened a number of years ago in Europe. There was a man from Israel. His name was Moshe Erlanger. He tells the story. He said he was traveling from Europe and he was trying to get back home to Israel for Yom Kippur. And the plane developed some problems and they had to stop in Frankfurt, and he found out that he was not going to be able to catch another plane before the start of Yom Kippur. So the airline apologized. They got him a hotel room not far from the main Frankfurt shul. And there he was. He was stuck in Frankfurt, Germany for Yom Kippur. Now, he didn't want to be in Frankfurt, Germany. He wanted to be home in Israel. He had a shul. He loved it. He loved the people. He loved the chazan. He loved the rabbi. Some people really like the place that they daven in, and he did not want to be stuck in Germany. He didn't. Germany was not his kind of experience. He made whatever he could for his Sudas HaMapseket, the meal he had before the fast. Some sardines, some tuna fish, a few crackers. What did he have? He was caught unaware, and he didn't have any kosher, meal or food with him. Nobody, he was in a hotel. And he puts on his slippers because he doesn't have any real shoes for Kippur. And he heads to the shul, and he doesn't even have his kapata, his strimal, whatever, his kittel. He has nothing. And he comes into the shul. And the shul in Frankfurt, Germany, of course, it was destroyed during World War II. But after World War II, they built it up. A huge, fancy European shul. Seats 3,000 people with huge, huge gates. But, and it was full. The shul was full that night. It was Kol Nidre. And he goes into the shul, and the gabbai sees him, and he sees that this person is a little uncomfortable, and he says, "Who are you? What's your story?" And he says, "I didn't." No, he explains. Excuse me. That he was stuck here in Frankfurt. He wanted to be in Israel, and his heart is in the east, and he's here stuck in the west, and he doesn't have a kittel, a max, or anything. So the rabbi says, "No problem. I'll find you something." It gets him a kittel, gets him a talis, gets him a maxor, so he can read and so forth. And there he sits down, but he's not expecting to have a great experience because it's Germany, and Germany is known as a very emotionally cold, cool kind of place. He expected a very austere kind of experience. And the Chazan gets up and he starts Kol Nidre, and he is shocked. This Chazan has such passion, such islavus, such feeling. When he starts singing the Kol Nidre, and each time you do it 3 times, each time it's even with greater and greater emotion. And he was blown away. He had never been to such a spiritually stirring, exciting Kol Nidre before. And he didn't expect this at all. In Germany? So after Mariv, he went over to the Chazan and he asked him, "Excuse me, sir, could you tell me? I was really struck by the way you sang Kol Nidre. Can you tell me why? Was something happened in your family? You had so much tears, you had so much emotion. Something happened to you? What were you thinking about when you were doing the Kol Nidre?" So the Chazan tells him, he says, most people don't ask, but it's a good thing that you asked. It's going to be worth your while because I tell you this story. It's an amazing story, and I'll explain to you why I sing Kol Nidre that way. So he says, my name, he introduces himself. His name is,
Doesn't matter.
I guess it doesn't matter because I can't remember it off the top of my head there. Tzaddik Greenwald. Tzaddik Greenwald as my name. I am the child of Holocaust survivors, and I don't live here, but I consider it my honor and my duty to lead the congregation every Yom Kippur. Here I come to Frankfurt and I lead the congregation. Because this is the place where they tried to destroy the Jewish people. And we sing and we show that the Am Yisrael Chai, that the Jews are still alive and that the God of Israel is, and it's a huge crowd. And I was doing the service 1 year. I've been doing it now here for like 20 years. And 1 year, at the end of, after Nila, after Marav at the end of Yom Kippur, I was getting ready to go home. There have been 2,000 people here. I was tired. I do all those services, Shachris, Mincha, Marav, and I was folding up my talus and going out I went out through the back door. I was very tired. I hadn't had anything to eat or drink. I was looking forward to getting back to my hotel room and to be able to break my fast. And the place, I was the last person out of the building. Everybody had left, even the janitor. So I went out the side door and I started walking by the front of the shul. And when I walked by the front of the shul, I happened to see there was a guy standing outside, man about 60 years old. He was dressed for Yontif, but he didn't look like he was normally, such a religious person. He had one of those white, yarmulkes that you borrow at the bar mitzvahs. He was wearing that, and that's all he had on his head. And he said to me in a very thick Russian and German and Yiddish accent, he said to me, he says, "Varvus is the Tirim geschlossen," which means, why are the doors closed? And I looked at him and I couldn't, this is the Chazan speaking. He says, I didn't know what to tell him. I didn't say anything. And he asked me again, he belted me, "Entschuldige mir, please tell me, was ist heute nicht der Nacht von Kol Nidre? Wo ist der Leute? Isn't tonight Kol Nidre? Where are the people?" And he begged and he begged. And finally I had to break it to him. I said, Kol Nidre was last night. Yom Kippur's over. It was already done. We're in the next day. It's closed. The synagogue's over. And the man broke out in tears. 60-year-old man just completely broke down like a baby. And he said that, he explained to himself why. He said that because his parents were Holocaust survivors. And after the war, they didn't keep so many of the Jewish mitzvahs, but one thing that they certainly kept always was going to shul for Yom Kippur. And my father told me on his deathbed, he says, how do you know that you are still part of the Jewish people? That you go to shul for Kol Nidre. That is how you know that you're still a Jew. And he told me that, and the man was saying, and every year I make sure that I am in shul for Kol Nidre and for Yom Kippur. And now I missed it. And I feel like I have been cut off from the Jewish people, that I'm no longer a Jew because my father told me, how do you know that you're Jewish? It's because you go to shul on Yom Kippur. You go to shul for Kol Nidre. And he just was breaking. He was completely broken. He was completely smashed. And he just couldn't stop crying. I was a 60-year-old man. And Sada Greenwald, the Chazan, said, at that point in time, I knew exactly what I had to do. And I said to him, I said, listen, I am the Chazan of the Shul of Frankfurt, and you have not missed Kol Nidre because we're going to go back inside, and I'm going to sing Kol Nidre for you. So he went back into the Shul. He was pitch dark. They had to go through the side. The whole place, he sat the guy down in the front seat. He gave him a Russian machzor. They had Russian machzorim. He went onto the bima. He turned on one little light, and in this dark room, to this one man, he began to sing Kol Nidre. Kol Nidre. And he did it. And he said, it was the most powerful Kol Nidre that I ever gave over. Because, I try and pray to Hashem. I try and say Kol Nidre with tremendous feeling and in connection to God. But what can you do? You've got 2,000 people in the audience. And if you're a chazan, you have a little self-conscious, and you tend to think about, do they like me? So you are also performing a little bit. He says, that night, I was not performing for anyone. I wasn't even performing for this man. I was just talking to Hashem. And, and that man just happened to be there. And he did it once, and he did it twice, and he did it 3 times, and then he continued, and he did Shema, said Shema together with him. And afterwards, the man thanked him tremendously and thanked him, and he says, you have done a tremendous favor for me tonight. And they went home. 2 years later, this man shows up again, and he says, do you recognize me? And he says, yeah, I do recognize you. And he says, yeah. He says, you don't have no idea what you did. You restored my soul. I thought I was cut off from the Jewish people, and you gave me back my soul. And the Chazan Tzaddik Grunwald says that from that on, I learned, I always think about that experience. And that is the experience that I pray with when I say Kol Nidre. I don't think about the audience at all. I just think only about Hashem. And that is where I get that feeling and ability to do the Kol Nidre the way I did. And I thought that to myself, and I heard the story, and I heard it again this year. I thought that that's very much a big message of this period in time, because many of us think, we're upset that, that in some way we were late. Well, we missed out on our Yom Kippur. We missed out on the spirituality. We missed out on life like other people have. We lost out on this. We were left behind. God forgot about me, and somehow I'm not connected. I'm not part of this. I'm not part of what's going on. And it may not just be, that you physically are late for missing Kol Nidre. You may go there, but sometimes, for Yom Kippur, you're not spiritually there. And this can happen in the most religious of religious communities of Bnei Brak and Lakewood or wherever. People have been doing it over and over and over again, and they're not present there. They're not take advantage of it. They don't experience it. They don't live the Yom Kippur experience. They don't experience it because it seems like it's just been done over and over again, and they don't really expect that anything can change, that life can change and life can be different, and that life can actually transform. And this is the message that I think that we really have to take with both hands and grab onto about this Kol Nidre and about the whole Yom Kippur experience. It is 26 hours that can be a launching pad to completely transform your life. But you know what? We have to be present. We have to be like that guy, just completely in. And he completely broke down, and he opened himself up, and he was honest. And that honesty, that is what the heart of tshuva is all about. There was a king in Israel. His name was Manasseh. King Manasseh was the son of King Chizkiah, who was one of the most righteous kings in the first temple period. And his father saw prophetically that she was going to have children who were going to be bad, really bad. So he got sick and he was on his deathbed, and the prophet Isaiah came to him and said, the reason why you're sick and you're in bed is because you're not having children, and you're supposed to have children. And he says, what am I supposed to do? I saw that my children are going to be bad and really bad. They're going to have worship idols and going to cause other people to worship idols. So I'd rather not have children. And I think it says it's not your business. It's none of your business. What God does is what God does. You have to have children. And therefore, but you know what I'll do? I'll give you my daughter, and my daughter, in between you and my daughter, who is both very righteous people, maybe your kid will turn out to be good. But the kid was not good. It was King Manasseh, and he reigned for 55 years, and he was one of the worst kings in Israel. And he made idolatry and all this other kind of stuff. The reason I'm telling the story is because in the middle of his realm, the Assyrians captured him. They brought him back to the capital of Assyria. Forget what it is. You hear it in Tobruk or something. It's one of these famous cities you hear about, Tikrit or something like that, Tikrit in Iraq. And they put him in a copper pot, filled it up with water, and they put a big fire underneath it, and they were cooking him. And he started screaming out to Hashem. And he started screaming, calling to Hashem, says, my father said, that the gates of heaven are always open for people who do tshuva. And therefore, I want to do tshuva. And the angel said, no way, this guy is really bad. And he's just doing it because of external reasons. It's not really he wants to do good. He doesn't deserve it. So God had to drill a hole underneath his kisei kavod and let the prayers come up through that way, because the angels were blocking the prayers from coming in. And this is the story in Gemara in Gemara Yerushalmi. The Rebbe often talked about this story because he said that is the power of tshuva. The power of tshuva, the power of return, the power of this time, the power that we have in this period of time is the power to completely redo the universe and completely change it, because God says, you do this, you do this, you do this, and you're a good girl and you're a good boy, and everything will be good with you and so forth. And then the person goes and he does something that's not like that. What do you want? God says, I made the world just like the law of physics. If you put your finger in the fire, you're going to get burnt. If you destroy my world by violating my rules, you go against my will. What do you want from me? What is tshuva? Tshuva is saying, you know what, God, I know that's your will. That's your want. But you're the owner of your want. You're the Baal Haratzon. You're the master of these rules too. And you've made the rules, but you can also remake. There's a higher level where we're connected to you beyond the rules. And that is what Tshuva reaches to. It reaches to a level that's even greater than what God's Torah and what God's angels and what all of godliness and spirituality is about. When a person does Tshuva, because he connects to something greater than who he thinks he is, the person goes deeper into himself. Therefore, he connects to a level of godliness that can transform the whole world. That is what tshuva is all about. That is what this 26 hours of kapara, of cleansing, Yom Kippur means cleansing, we can redo the slate, we can redo our lives, we can redo everything. We can go back beyond time, beyond rules, beyond everything. And we can change reality retroactively to rewrite the scripts of our lives. That is what Yom Kippur is about. That is the specialness of Yom Kippur. But to do that, you've got to really put yourself out. Maybe that's one of the reasons, that we don't eat for 26 hours, to sort of inspire us to say, you know what, the only way you're going to turn that voice off is by completely getting away from the materialism, the eating, the everything else in the world and so forth, and just go into a deeper level of who you are. What was I before I needed to eat? What was I before anything else? And when we do that on Yom Kippur, we can change everything. We can change our lives, our families' lives, everyone around us lives. And therefore, we have to really reach. It's definitely not a simple thing. Yom Kippur is not an easy holiday to go through, but it is a tremendous. But look at it the other way. It is a springboard. It is a launching pad. It is an ability to say, I don't want whatever it is that's holding me down in my life and all the stuff that's going on and so forth. I want to see that completely be rewritten retroactively, I didn't lose out on anything. And that is also the lesson for this man. You know, he's 60 years old, but you're never too late. God, not in God's book. Never too late. He is never abandoning us. He is never giving up. He is never going to stop. And that is, I think, that's one lesson I wanted to leave you with for this era of Yom Kippur. May you all have a Gamar Chasima Tova. Every one of you listening out there in YouTube land and everybody who's alive, who came tonight, I have to also warn you, we're not going to have classes the next 2 weeks because it's going to be Sukkot, it's going to be Yom Tov, and therefore we won't be able to have classes. Thank you so much, and I'm handing the class over to my wife.
Yes, you know what? I missed in his story. I got a phone call. I missed in his story why the man missed Kol Nidre. Where I left off, he was at the shul.
He got mixed up with the nights. That's it. He got mixed up. He didn't look at the calendar. That was it.
Okay, so maybe
that's it.
Because I thought I heard him say that he got to the shul in Germany, and all right, forget it. It's okay.
Okay. So I just want to give a brief session. So I'll say very quickly what I always say. Number one, we're in an extraordinary time. Number two, we're what is the extraordinary time? The extraordinary time is that the Geula is unfolding, and the redemption of the Jews and the whole world is unfolding. And I know that because Lubavitch Rebbe told us that. Lubavitch Rebbe was never wrong on any of his amazing public pronouncements, all of which defied logic and reason, but they came true. So this one also is coming true. And you and I were meant to be in this time. We were handpicked to be in this time. We were given all the tools that we need. We were given the Torah and the mitzvahs, which are our power tools, the Torah, which is our guidebook. And lastly, what we're doing tonight actively hastens the process of redemption. So, so the title of the class was how to spend how to take advantage of the 24 hours of Yom. It's actually 25 hours of Yom Kippur, which are the most spiritually powerful hours in the whole year. And I'm more than convinced that that's when I was answered, and I found my husband the next year. And I even know the moment. I feel very much the moment I was answered, and it was during the Elah of the year before I met Yaskel Shemin. It's a very, 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 very powerful time. So
what's the rest of the story? You during the Elah, what did you say?
During the Elah, what did I say? I said, I'll tell you, I had a roommate that I had gone through, she'd been my roommate for 4 years. I've told the story before. She'd been my roommate for 4 years. And when I say roommate, I don't mean suite mate. I mean, we were in the same room. And we went through this, we went through that time together. And she was engaged. She had gotten engaged shortly before Rosh Hashanah. And I felt like the carpet was pulled out from under me. I felt like I had no, like I mainly relied on her as a human being and, God too, of course. But I felt like my support was being taken away from me. And then during the Elah, I said, okay, it suddenly dawned on me. I said, I am going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. That's it. I'm going to trust you that you're going to help me. And I meant it. And when you reach to a deep level of trust, that's what Hashem is waiting for. Hashem wants you to know that he's a good guy, right? And this is a relationship like a husband. The relationship with Hashem is like a husband and a wife. And the more you trust your husband and the more you are calm and you expect good from the person, the more you're going to get. It's the same thing with Hashem. It's, anyway, so we can talk about that more at another time.
Thank you.
So anyway, just very briefly, before Yom Kippur, give lots of charity, lots of tzedakah, and forgive anybody who hurt you. forgive them mentally. And if you can, if it's appropriate, you can forgive them, to their face or on the phone. And daven this time now, not just Yom Kippur, our time, our neshama right now is in the most spiritually elevated position that it is all year long. It's in a it's sort of like a kid's analogy. It's like we're in Hashem's palace all year long. Our neshama, part of it is in our body, but our neshama, our soul, is too big to be housed in our body. So it's in the spiritual realms. Most of it, it's like a small ray of it comes down into your body. And so obviously it enjoys lofty revelations up there, but there's nothing that compares to the closest that we are from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. It's called the Kir of Hanitzus L'Maor, the closeness of the sparks to the flame. Hashem is the flame, our neshamas are the spark. And we are at no time of year are we closer to, is the spark closer to Hashem than these 10 years. So even now, even tonight, even tomorrow, it is incredibly spiritually charged. So talk to Hashem, daven to Hashem now, and daven in a different way than you usually do. Take, allow yourself the time to do it. And so anyway, I have like 6 points about, maybe 7 points about how to make the most of Yom Kippur. It's interesting that there's a very powerful prayer on Yom Kippur. It's called Avinu Malkeinu, and our Father, our King, and so we say we have no other king other than you. Why do we sing a song like that? Of course Hashem is our king. Of course Hashem. We know Hashem decides everything. He's our king. So why do we have to sing that song? Because the fact is that most of us do not make Hashem our king throughout the year. Very often our sabotaging inclination is what's king over us. Every time we listen to the Yetzer Hara, every time we listen to that voice of doubting in Hashem, we're making that voice of doubt our king and not God. And every time we boot him out and we say, I'm sorry, I'm trusting you, God, I'm trusting you, then we're making Hashem our king. So we sing Avinu Malkeinu Ein Lanu Melech Ela Ata, because we have to remind ourselves, yes, I'm going to make Hashem my king. I'm not making the Yetzer Hara my king. I'm not making a boss that I think about 24/7 my king. I'm not going to make a woman that drives me crazy or whatever. Whoever it is that figures, in a negative way, very high in your life, just boot them out of there and make Hashem your king. The second point is that how do we daven on Yom Kippur? The same way we daven all year round, except, with maybe more attention. The proper way to daven, this is something I heard, 30 years ago from Rabbi Israel Tauber, who's no longer with us. And he said the proper way, I haven't heard it for many, many years, but it's something like Moda al ha'aver, Tzok al ha'asid. Everything that happened to you in the past year, no matter how little you liked it, thank Hashem for it because it was good. If it happened, it only happened because Hashem wanted that planned for that to happen. And if Hashem planned for that to happen, it is for my personal good, however much that blows your brains. And it's fun to do. It's really fun to do. The more repulsive the event was to you, and the more you say, thank you. I know that was good. I know it. Because it was from you. It's like it releases something inside you. It's really great. So Moda, we acknowledge and we thank for everything that happened to us, everything. And Sa'ok al ha'asid, but we cry out for the future. And please, for the future, this is what I want. You tell Hashem in no uncertain terms what it is that you want, especially now, even before Yom Kippur. The third thing is your prayers are going to be so much more effective if you are one with every Jew. So people that you you have these little judgments in your back, in the back of your mind. Just kick out those judgments, kick them out. That person is as holy as you are. And be consciously be one with every Jew. The next thing is, Yom Kippur is famous for its fast, right? But there's many other elements to Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is also Shabbos, Shabboson. So we keep it, even if you're not going to keep, you're not at that level in which you're keeping Shabbos around the year, do your best. Tape up your lights before Shabbos so you don't flip one on and flip them off. Decide which lights you want on and which lights you want on. Do it as a gift to Hashem. It's the most precious day of the year to Hashem too. And we don't want to trot on what's important to Hashem. Just like you try, and if you're married, you try and do what's important to your spouse. This is important to Hashem, whether or not it's important to you. And also, on Yom Kippur, we don't wear leather shoes. And I guess it's sort of like we don't express our dominion over the rest of creation. Like, I'm wearing leather shoes, I'm wearing animal skins. I don't really know what the reason is. I just imagine that that's what it is. I never really looked it up, frankly. And we don't put on makeup and perfume. You put it on before Yom Kippur, and then you let it wear off. But you put on enough beforehand so you're happy with it. And if you wear makeup, these are all gifts to Hashem. We don't do those things on Yom Kippur. Okay, number 4, the next thing, that was 3B, pray. And when you pray, do both. You pray in your own words because it's incredibly powerful. Speak from the depth of your heart. It's incredibly powerful. But also take advantage of the siddur, even if you don't understand it. Even if you say it in Hebrew, you don't have to understand it. Is that interesting? I mean, it's better if you understand it, but the Hebrew words that were programmed into the siddur are pre-programmed to take you somewhere. It's like a computer program. It's exactly like a computer program. You can't get there by yourself, and the computer program can do it for you. I don't know how to completely justify a page so it's all in the middle, but I just press a button on the computer. Boom, my page is laid out beautifully. So too the siddur. When you say those words, they were pre-programmed with such power that they get you to places that you can't get on your own. So the next point, which is the second to the last point, I believe, is enjoy it. Enjoy Yom Kippur. It's beyond anything that you can imagine. It is compared to the intimacy of a husband and a wife in the bedroom. That's what it's compared to. That's how close Hashem wants to be to us. And that's how close he is to us on Yom Kippur, especially at the end of Yom Kippur. And it's like you have a long lost love and you get to be with this person for 24 hours, and especially the end, especially Ne'ilah. So Hashem is making himself available to us, and Hashem loves us more than Hashem loves everything about us, and he cares about everything about us. He thinks more about us. He cares more about us than we care about ourselves. He's more madly in love with us than we are with ourselves. He created us. He knows who we are. And he has immense pleasure in every single thing we do to come closer to him. Immense pleasure. So enjoy it. I remember, I'm not going to go into, I had I've had some extraordinary Ne'ilah experiences, but and I'm not going to, I don't think I'm going to tell the one that I often tell, but there was a 16-year-old who came to that same Ne'ilah service, and she had started to become frum, and right before she got to Ne'ilah, right in the break before Ne'ilah, and they announced that Ne'ilah is next, and she said, "Oh, Ne'ilah," and she was like melting with passion. And that's how we should feel, because that's the truth. So anyway, it's absolutely the truth. Absolutely the truth. On one leg, I'll tell you that there was that on one foot, that there was a year I wasn't feeling anything in particular. I had prepared for Yom Kippur, and I had thought a lot about Hashem, and that, people, he's got a bad rep. He needs a PR agent. He has a bad rep in the world. And anyway, and as Ne'ilah began, and I was thinking that in Ne'ilah you can access the fifth level of your soul that you cannot access the rest of the year unless you're in a crisis. But in Ne'ilah, the fifth level of your soul is available, the one that's never available to you otherwise. And I thought about that, and I thought, if you picture the face of a tzaddik, particularly somebody like the Rebbe, that also enables you to access the fifth level of your soul. So anyway, I've said it before, just like a kid doing a science experiment thing, what's going to happen if I stick my finger in this socket? I decided, what will happen if I picture the Rebbe in Ne'ilah during Ne'ilah? And that's what I did, just like a science experiment with no emotion, no nothing. I pictured the Rebbe as I'm saying the words of Ne'ilah, and all of a sudden, I was crying I was sobbing uncontrollably. And I heard a voice, my voice coming out of my mouth saying, "You don't even have 4 walls to call your own. You, Hashem, you don't even have 4 walls." And afterwards I said, what in the world was that? That wasn't me. What was that? And I realized, Shlomo Yudas, you were crying over the fact that Hashem doesn't have a temple. You were crying over the Shekhinah being in exile. You were crying over, and that's so far from how I live my life. That's a level that I don't even dream of approaching, but that's where we are. That's where our inner neshama is. Our inner neshama is that tied to Hashem. That's the level that's available. And in the Ne'ilah particularly, all of Yom Kippur, and especially in the Ne'ilah. So it's also said that Yom Kippur is like a hasana. It's like a wedding. And just like, you can think of, Rosh Hashanah has this reputation as the Day of Judgment, and Yom Kippur as the sealing of the judgment, but there's so much more to it. That's like the year of perspective. That's the fearful perspective. Oh, what's going to happen to me? What's going to be written in for me? In Hasidus, we don't necessarily call Rosh Hashanah so much Yom Hadin. We call it the day that we make Hashem the king, because we're more into the love aspect. It's the day that we finally make Hashem king over ourselves. And Yom Kippur is the Hasana, the day and like when a woman marries a man, he pledges to give her everything that she needs. That's what Hashem is doing on Yom Kippur. He's not writing the decree, you were bad, you get this, you were this. No, he's saying, what does my bride need for the coming year? Let me think in all the details. And that's the year that we get. He thinks about what is the absolute best year for us. He's going to give me everything I need, just like a husband is supposed to give his wife everything that she needs. So don't forget to eat 2 big meals beforehand. On the day before, tomorrow, during the day, eat 2 big meals, because you don't want to be thinking about food on this incredibly important day. You want to be satisfied and just ride the day. And anyway, I was going to tell a little story about something that happened to me, but I think that I don't know. I think that I'll save the story for another week. And I want to know if anybody has any questions. Anybody have any questions? Because if not, I'm going to turn off the recording, because I always like to turn it off early.